Well, hey, welcome back. I'm Dave Dubeau, and today we're talking about how to buy a multifamily property with no money down. Now, investing in apartment buildings, multifamily properties, things like that has become very, very popular with a lot of real estate investors these days. However, there's a challenge to investing with multifamily properties, and that is coming up with the money needed to do these kind of deals. I mean, think about it. If you're trying to purchase a 20, 30, 40, 100 unit building, that's a heck of a lot more expensive than a single family home. So coming up with money for the down payments, closing costs, property transfer taxes, different studies that have to, environmental studies, et cetera, that have to be done on the property. It is a very, very cash intensive kind of business, which is why this is something that is typically delegated to the higher echelons of real estate investors. So a lot of people want to know, well, how can I buy an apartment building yet not have to come up with a lot of my cash to do that? That's what we're going to be talking about here today. All right, so when it comes to how to buy a multifamily property with no money down, I'm going to be talking about three different things here today. And the first thing is partnering up with somebody. Second thing is bringing value to the table. And the third thing is bringing on investors. So that's what we're going to be talking about here today. So way back in 2013, when I first got involved in investing in multifamily properties, I'd just gone through a divorce and I didn't have very much, well, didn't have any capital to my name, to be perfectly frank with you, but I wanted to get in the game. So the first thing I did was I looked for who can I partner with to do this kind of deal? Who do I know that is already actively doing multifamily deals and has a good track record and a lot of experience in the field? And I immediately thought of my good friend Ken. And I approached Ken and I said, hey Ken, I don't want to just learn about how to do multifamily deals with you. I would like to partner with you on a multifamily property. Now, the challenge was I didn't have any experience and I didn't have any capital. So that brings us to the second thing, and that is how do you bring value to the table? So in this case, I had a lot of experience with marketing and with communicating with people, and I had a large list of prospective investors. So what I brought to the table was connections. So I was providing value to Ken because Ken had the experience, Ken had access to the properties, but Ken was lacking the investors to make it happen. So I was able to join forces with him on a deal because I could bring investors to the table. So the third thing is bringing investors in on a deal. Now this is something you have to be a little bit careful about because depending on where you're at and what your location is and the size of the deal and the number of investors and who they are, you could be trading into securities waters. So you have to be very careful about that, and I highly recommend that you get the appropriate legal and financial counsel before you dive into this. I'm going to just share my point of view as a real estate guy and as a marketer when it comes to this. So again, depending on how big the deal is, you can be looking at different kinds of investors that you're bringing to the table. So in my case, when I partnered on this multifamily property, it was a 54 unit deal. We needed to raise just over $800,000 to purchase the property. The price of the property was $4.7 million at the time. So we needed to raise just over $800,000. And I looked at my network, my connections, people that I already had a pre-existing relationship with. So who are we talking about there? We're talking about friends, family members, co-workers, business associates, people you know from church or civic organizations, clients, that sort of thing. So I looked through my connections and I found a number of people that I had done business with over the years. And I put the word out there and we brought on 5 investor partners who all invested a minimum of $100,000. One investor brought, I believe, close to $400,000 to the deal. The other investors brought different amounts. And together, we all did this deal. So we had Ken was the main guy that was finding the property, analyzing the property, lining up the financing, lining up the property management. I joined forces with him in investor relations, bringing the investors and the capital to the table. And our investors came on board and we all shared in the profits on the deal. So the fastest way to get into multifamily properties without any of your own money in the deal is to bring on joint venture partners, to bring on investor partners to do those deals. That is the number one way the big syndicators do it. That's the number one way all of the folks that are in the multifamily space tend to do it, and that is that they bring on investors. It might be a syndication type deal. It might be a different kind of a setup. It depends on the size and the number of investors that are involved, but that's typically exactly what they're doing. Now, speaking of bringing on investors and attracting joint venture partners, if you're looking for a proven way to do it, then go ahead and grab a free copy of my book, Money Partner Formula. You can find the link in the description below, or you can go to investorattractionbook.com. And in the book, I go through my entire process for attracting investors to you instead of you desperately chasing after them. In fact, following this process, we've worked with hundreds of clients over the years and helped them to raise 6 figures in a matter of weeks, and quite often 7 figures in a matter of months. So go ahead, grab your free copy today.